socially led campaigns. Socially activated campaigns can activate real movements. And I think what happens here is that if people say, if a lot of people are interested in this area, then there must be something interesting about it. So I have to give it more attention. I have to look at it in more detail. So here are two examples of campaigns that have gone further, that have really put social media at the core of the campaign. And the first one of these is for Cadbury's. It's an example from the UK. And I should just explain, this is for a brand called Cadbury's Whisper, which was a 1970s, 1980s brand which had become defunct. And nothing to do with Cadbury's, but a Facebook movement started behind wanting to bring Facebook back. And in fact, as this gathered momentum, there was actually an event where a group of Whisper fans invaded the stage at Glastonbury while Iggy Pop was performing with a banner saying "Bring back Facebook." Nothing to do with Cadbury's. This was just this rather eccentric group of fans of Whisper Bar. So, I mean, Cadbury saw the opportunity in this, and actually, Whisper was relaunched on Facebook, and there was a rather bizarre online auction of the first box of Whisper bars off the production line, which was bought by an equally strange man from the Isle of Wight, who paid £500 for the first 12 bars of Whisper off the production line. So anyway, this is from a little bit later on during that campaign. I think it's interesting because it's a social case study combined with social media. So take a look. Can we play the next video, please?
This is the story of how Cadbury said thank you to Whisper fans by handing them the launch advertising for Whisper Gold, creating the most complex outdoor campaign ever undertaken in the UK. The return of Whisper by popular demand had been hugely successful, propelling Whisper to the #1 chocolate bar in the UK, so the launch of Whisper Gold as a limited edition had a lot to live up to. Cadbury wanted to use Whisper Gold to say thank you to their fans for helping to bring Whisper back, while at the same time delivering against stiff sales targets for Whisper Gold. The big idea was a very simple one. To say thank you to its fans, Cadbury would give our advertising for Whisper Gold back to them, giving them a once-in-a-lifetime chance to share personal messages with the world.
We used Outdoor because it was a really public medium that we knew we could tailor and localise the campaign and really kind of reward the creator of the message and the recipient.
PhD took a really unconventional idea and created a platform for it that was bold and ambitious. They really challenged the way in which we use media to truly involve our fans.
Fans were asked to create personal messages on the Whisper website within a Whisper Gold template frame, which we would then place on specific poster sites which the fans could choose themselves.
We knew we had almost 250,000 Facebook fans already, so we decided to basically let them sort of get involved in the campaign first.
Using PR and key media partnerships, PhD broadened the call for messages and ensured that a wider audience than Whisper's fans knew what we were doing. This included a unique MSN Messenger application that allowed friends to co-create and submit messages together, and a partnership with the Channel 4 website, where Channel 4 personalities created their own messages, encouraging the public to do the same. Joan Workman was one of the lucky winners who had her message made into a poster. It was a message that was very close to her heart.
I wanted to send a message to somebody special, and in this case it was my grandson Henry, who was born prematurely. When I heard that my little poem had been shortlisted for the Whisper Gold campaign and was going to be turned into a poster, I was absolutely amazed.
And there was even a PR stunt that saw Rolf Harris hand-paint a live marriage proposal on one of the sites.
Logistically, this campaign was really complex, but a great campaign to kind of be involved in. We had over 25 people involved, 913 different creative executions across almost 3,000 sites in the UK and across 11 different formats. And on top of that, we photographed every single creative execution and uploaded it to the website so that everyone who put their message up could see it and also pass it on to their friends.
We were really overwhelmed by the reaction we had from fans. Over 7,500 messages, and some of them were just so special. The amount of goodwill the campaign generated was great.
During the campaign, the Whisper Gold Facebook group grew from 262 to 798,000, a 205% increase. The campaign generated a total of 131 PR pieces to the value of £400,500. Most importantly, the campaign returned £8 in value sales for every £1 spent in media. And Cadbury sold over 18 million bars, making Whisper Gold the #1 confectionery launch of the year.
PhD provided us with an incredible platform to say thank you to our fans by giving them the opportunity to have really special messages displayed in public places. It was an incredible campaign to work on, and the results really speak for themselves.
I'd just like to thank Whisper Gold for giving us the opportunity, both myself and Henry, to thank St Thomas's for the wonderful care they gave him.
Is that it has largely only been promoted through Facebook. It was relaunched through Facebook, and it only, its main driver has been through Facebook. And yet it's become the UK's top-selling confectionery brand in a relatively small space of time. And in 2010, Cadbury sold £92 million worth of Whisper bars. And they got a return of £3.32 for every pound they spent through social media. So it is a great case study, I think. The second case study, which I think is an example of putting social at the absolute core of what you do, I think it's become quite infamous, and it was richly and deservedly rewarded very heavily at Cannes this year for Old Spice, Procter & Gamble's Old Spice. It doubled sales in 1 month. The sales stayed up 55% for 3 months. So, it's again, an incredibly successful case study using social media. Both, I think, of those cases demonstrate the potential of socially activated campaigns. So where do you go from there? Well, I think in 2011, it's legitimate, really, to aim for every brand to have social roots. Those two campaigns, I think, indicate the power of going beyond just social and giving an entire campaign social roots. So where are we so far? We've established that social media can make search a lot more effective, can improve online campaigns, and is very effective at the fore of campaigns. But if you were to go one stage beyond that, into socially enabled businesses, that's when it starts to get really interesting. That's when you go into an area where a brand is always on in real time. And it takes you into an area beyond mere campaign periods. It's about keeping brands front of mind all the time. Now, to be able to evaluate those campaigns, we really have to understand the value of participation and the value of influence. And there's a piece of research here. In 2010, a company called Virtue tried to understand the value of a Facebook fan. And they benchmarked the value of a Facebook fan against traditional media, traditional cost per thousands, in a main comparison largely against television. And they came up with a number of $3.60. Okay? More ambitiously, another company last year called Syncaps values fans based on the propensity to normal paid-for media. The second one factors in the effects of participation and influence. But it's certainly clear that there's something really interesting going on with Facebook fans. And if you look at this piece of data, what this says is that fans spend more. So we've looked here at McDonald's, at Starbucks, at Nutella, at Nike, Coca-Cola, and you can see there the clear extra spending that a Facebook fan does versus a non-fan. Now, this could be because if they become a fan, they spend more, or perhaps they're already brand loyal. But the difference in these values, I think, is really intriguing. And I think something interesting is happening here. So after people publicly declare brand loyalty, it does seem that they spend more on a brand, whichever way you look at it. And they're also more loyal. The same study suggests that fans are 28% more likely to use a product, and they're 41% more likely to recommend a product to a friend versus non-fans. So strong evidence there of the value of a fan. Another study by a company called Chart Trends looked at the lifetime value of social mentions, and it suggests that a brand mention in social media is worth 51 cents, which compares very favourably in Western markets with television costs. So look, what we've done today is to skim across the available data. I think that all of it, frankly, has to be read with a critical eye. Some are clearly agenda-led because they're sponsored by social media companies. But they all show the importance of using social to build brand communities and keeping brands alive between campaign periods. They can increase brand consideration, return from online, and facilitate social promotions, and build online, ongoing brand communities. So there's clearly a lot happening in this area. But it's very clear, I think, that as an industry, we really need to work harder in this area, because whilst there's you may feel like I've shown you an awful lot of data in this presentation, I think we need greater clarity as an industry. We need more real case studies, more depth of case studies, because a lot of money is being spent here, and clients are going to be, already are asking us to justify these levels of expenditure. And if you're projecting an $8 billion business globally within 4 years, then obviously that really has to be justified. And I think, as well as that, we have to take into consideration all the costs of social media. I think one of the things that gets overlooked a lot of the time is that social campaigns are actually quite expensive to create. There are staff costs, production costs, design costs, social listening costs. So social work is actually quite intensive, and it's not cheap. Focus, a network of business and technology experts, recently estimated the cost of the average social campaign at $210,000 US. So the cost of setting up social, aside from the media costs, are not particularly inexpensive. So I think with this, bringing it all together, we've only just started to begin to grasp the potential ROI of social media. There are many more lessons that will need to be learned as social becomes more widely used and sophisticated. And I think therein lies a key point, because there's absolutely no doubt that social will become much more sophisticated. Using location data, augmented reality apps, and near-field communications. As technology progresses at an ever faster rate, that will impact social enormously, and it will become more complicated and more sophisticated. But I think we as a business in media, I mean all of us who represent media agencies here today from wherever we are, we can at the very least, as an industry, make a start to try and compile key ROI learnings. And this is just a summary of what I've talked about, of all the findings on one chart. And you can see, a lot of the numbers here are simply extraordinary. Using social at the core of a campaign can make it up to 200% more effective. Social at the core of online, again, up to 200% more effective. Social at the core of a total campaign, up to 100% more effective. And there's also evidence of real ongoing value, such as the value of Facebook fans and the comparisons with conventional media. So, recognising that it's very early and that we don't have enough evidence, early evidence suggests that the intelligent use of social media can double the payback from marketing